Now is Blair Feltmate. He's the Feltmate head, He's with the Intact Center on Climate Adaptation with the University of Waterloo. Blair, thank you for your time today. Let's start with what we're seeing here in Canada. Are these extreme heat events unusual or driven by climate change?
Well, they're a little bit of both. They're unusual, but they are driven by climate change. And through the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, over the last 25 or 30 years or something like that, the predictions have been that we're going to experience more extreme heat around the world, certainly in Canada. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. So the phenomena we're observing is consistent with what was predicted.
You know, we saw last year in British Columbia the toll that extreme heat can cause, hundreds of deaths attributed to that. And now the U.K. experiencing temperatures of up to 40 degrees. How does heat compare to other perils such as wildfires and floods?
Heat is more extreme in this fashion. Very often when people talk about climate change, very often we're talking about floods and fires. And so far in Canada, when flooding occurs and fires occur, generally speaking, people don't die. It's maybe 0, 1, 2, 3, perhaps 4 people maximum die. And of course, that's 4 too many. But with extreme heat, it's a whole other ball game. As you mentioned, with the extreme heat in British Columbia last year, we experienced 619 premature deaths due to extreme heat. In Quebec, in 2018, we experienced 86 premature deaths. And by the way, those deaths occurred under quote unquote good circumstances. Had the electricity gone out during those heat waves and fans and air conditioning not run, those deaths would have been into the high hundreds, if not thousands. So extreme heat is lethal when things go wrong.
What are you anticipating in the U.K. this weekend then? Because many homes, in fact, most of them don't have air conditioning.
Yeah, so quite frankly, and not to sound doom and gloom, but the expectation would be, yes, people can die. Hopefully they have systems in place right now to check on the more vulnerable in the population, which in England I would think would be very similar to Canada. It's the elderly living on their own that are particularly vulnerable, so they want to make sure they have systems in place to check on those individuals. It's the homeless. Who's checking on the homeless to make sure they're okay, they're hydrated, can they get to a cooling center? And people with pre-existing health conditions, particularly asthma related. They should be working in anticipation of the heat event right now to make sure they don't find themselves in harm's way.
What can governments do, and are they doing it fast enough?
We're on the right track in terms of preparing for climate change, not just for extreme heat, but extreme heat, floods, and fires. But we really need to put programs in place more rapidly to mitigate risk. And on the extreme heat file, it's behavioral adaptation to address the needs of the elderly, the homeless, and people with pre-existing health conditions. Within cities, we should be working to retain more tree canopy within cities. We should literally, within cities, be painting the roofs of apartment buildings, factories, and shopping malls white versus the dark surface that's currently there now. Because when sunlight hits those dark surfaces of tar, the heat stays in the system. Right. But literally, if we painted them white, a large part of the energy will reflect into space and not contribute to the heat island effect. And we actually need to start thinking about air conditioning as a fundamental human right, people's access to air conditioning. The same way we expect warmth in the winter, people should be able to expect cooling capacity in the summer, so that when these heat events occur, it doesn't turn out to be lethal.
Blair Feltmate, head with the Intact Center on Climate Adaptation at the University of Waterloo. Thank you.
Thank you very much.